Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to COVE Tenant Talks. This is our fourth episode of this new series we launched last month, and we've had a lot of good reception so far, some really interesting conversations, and I'm really looking forward to today's conversation with Niru Somayajula. She's the CEO and president of Sensor Technology. Welcome, Niru. Nice to see you.
Hi, everyone.
How are things with you today?
Things are good. Things are good. Yeah, not a terrible day here in Dartmouth.
Nice. Thanks again for joining us. I think we're going to have an interesting discussion. Your company is, 37 years old now, so lots to cover. Maybe we could start off a little bit about your personal background, what led you to Sensor Tech, and your background leading up to this.
Sure. So, it started 37 years ago. My parents actually started the company when I was 3. Family business. I come from a family of nerds, so I was fully expected to follow in their footsteps, but I had no intentions of it, actually. So I was keen to go off to school, have my own career, forge my own way, and between actually my undergrad and grad school, I was asked to come in and run production for a few months while my mom was away looking after an ailing parent. And so I did, and I fell in love with the business. And so I came back after grad school and was asked to put together a plan to work my parents out of the company at their request. And they had a buyer in mind. The company was ready for sale. And the buyer wanted me to come in as interim management and sort of bridge the gap between my parents and the new people. And then I would have been absorbed up. And it sounded like a great deal. But things change, markets change, and we hit a bit of a recession period and the deal fell apart. But by this point, I, again, had fallen in love with this business. And so I assembled a couple of buyers back in 2011 and bought the business out from my parents. And here I am a few years later.
Nice. That's an exciting journey. Definitely no pressure at all trying to continue and grow your parents' business. No pressure there.
No. What I didn't mention, which I think is kind of interesting, is that our roots are in these things. And anyone that's heard me go on and on about pottery before will know that that's actually where Sensor Tech started, was through a company called Blue Mountain Pottery in Collingwood, Ontario, where our headquarters are. And so we eventually grew out of pottery and started making high-tech pottery. But if you come to either of our facilities, you can see behind me, there's lots of pottery around, and that's just kind of a nod to our past.
I have one of those mugs that you gave me on my desk here right now. So it's definitely a big part of your history, and it has really helped you expand that business into different verticals now in ocean tech.
Absolutely.
Perfect. Maybe we can jump in a little bit about what the company looks like right now. You said you have an office here in Dartmouth. Your headquarters is based out of Ontario. You have a global reach as a company as well. Maybe we can jump in a little bit, an overview of Sensor Tech and kind of the products and offerings, markets you might go after.
Yeah, so you might wonder why, a company that started off making pottery now makes ocean tech tools. It's kind of an interesting journey, but the crux of it is that any acoustic ocean tech sensor, which is primarily what we make, they all use something called a piezoelectric ceramic, and it's essentially high-tech pottery. And so in Collingwood, where we started 37 years ago, that's where we make all of our piezo ceramics. Right from the raw ingredients, we bring it in like cake batter, add all the ingredients together, mix it up, and then turn it into something that's hard and usable for an acoustic sensor. Communication devices rely on speaking and listening, and that's kind of what makes the piezo ceramic unique, is that you can use it for both. And so we have a few different formulations, and I'll show you a little video later about that. Once you've got this incredible ceramic, you can then add some wires and then make it waterproof, and it can go into the water. And that part of it, what we call the assembly process, is all done here in Nova Scotia. And that was a big move for us, being fairly isolated from the ocean tech community in Ontario. We made the leap with COVE as sort of our landing spot. 18 months ago now? I think we were one of the first couple of tenants to move in with a desk, which then grew into an office, and then the office grew into a bay, and then the bay grew into manufacturing, and then we just added another bay 3-4 weeks ago now. So it seems to kind of grow little by little over the last 18 months. So, and we're really happy to be here. I think we have, we're up to 10 people now in Nova Scotia, and we have about 30, 35 in Ontario. So it's grown pretty quick actually in the last 18 months.
Absolutely, especially from our perspective, from the outside looking in, because I remember you started with one person and a desk, and quite quickly expanded your footprint here in Dartmouth. So I can only imagine what's going to happen in the next 18, 24 months.
I don't even know. I couldn't have imagined this 18 months ago. So who knows, right? A couple
Exactly.
years from now will be what we'll be doing, hopefully bigger. Yeah.
Nice. You have prepared a presentation. Maybe we can jump in there, and you can walk us through some of the offerings and what you guys are up to right now.
Absolutely. So, starting from the beginning here, I'm having some technical difficulties here. Let's start from here. So, as you know, we started in pottery. I always start with this slide because this is really the roots of where our company came from. You know, Blue Mountain Pottery employed 700 people back in the 80s, 70s, 60s. And when they closed down, BM High Tech, Blue Mountain High Tech was started, and eventually we renamed it to Sensor Technology. But, you know, it's always nice to think about where you come from, kind of in terms of where you're going. But what we do now, and this is sort of the crux of what we do, is customized piezo-based products. And everything, I would say 99.5% of what we do is custom work. We don't build anything, put it on a shelf. Customers come to us and they're trying to build some kind of acoustic system, whether it's speaking or listening underwater. And they ask us to build something for them. And whether we're making 5 of them or whether we're making 50,000 of them, we sort of approach it with the same approach. And ocean techers that are out there will know that there's a lot of different ways that you can use acoustics underwater, whether it's on a vehicle, whether it's mounted to a ship, whether it's being dragged behind a ship, tethered to a buoy. Lots of different applications out there, and all of them use acoustics. And that's been interesting for us because acoustics are the heart of a lot of ocean tech sensors, and the piezo ceramics at the heart of all of those. And when you talk about making customized products for all of those different applications, whether it's fishing, whether it's defense, whether it's oil and gas exploration, they all need these acoustic products, and that's our specialty, right? So you think about it from left to right here, we've got just the piezo ceramic. We'll build it up and maybe add wires and sell that, the photo you see in the middle, and then perhaps encapsulate it, add some mounting threads and an O-ring. Sometimes we'll add electronics. It just kind of depends on what our customers are looking for and how much of the process they want to control themselves. And we try and fit in to the parts that they don't want to look after. And piezo ceramics are really unique, but weirdly, there's very, very few people that play in this market. And with the exception of Chinese companies, there's probably only 5 companies worldwide that still make piezo ceramics. And we're one of them. We're really proud to be one of those people. And then once you look into assembled goods, which we call hydrophones and transducers, hydrophones for listening, transducers for transducting or speaking. We always use our own ceramics in our assembled goods, but around the world, there's probably less than 3 that do both the ceramic and the assembly. So controlling that process from beginning to end. And so kind of like we talked about earlier, we've got 2 production facilities, one in Ontario, Collingwood. It's located about 2 hours north of Toronto. And we do all of our powder at ceramic manufacturing there. We have about 5 or 6 formulations of powders, we call it. And those we pick them based on the application. So whether you're trying to transmit or receive, how much power you're putting into it, we'll sort of pick the most appropriate formulation. And most of our hydrophone and transducer design still happens in Ontario. That said, that'll probably expand over the coming years as we add more people to Atlantic Canada. And here we have most of our sales office lives here in Dartmouth, and then all of our hydrophone and transducer manufacturing, all done here at COVE. And so if this works, I'm going to guide you through, since I can't do plant tours right now, I thought it'd be kind of interesting to show you what our plants both look like. And so this is our ceramic manufacturing plant in Ontario. And this is an operator, Joshua, that's pressing ceramic. So as you can tell, everything is still actually done fairly manually. We do have some semi-automated machines that can do up to 1,000 pieces a day. But for the most part, most things are done manually. And so he will press a block or a tube, whatever the shape is, depending on the design. And then we're walking back here into what we call our firing room. So you'll see kilns, and this is another Josh actually, and he's pulling some parts out of the kilns. So we have a number of kilns, and you'll see them in a minute here. And we use different kilns for different formulations just to prevent cross-contamination. And so each kiln is configured for a specific material, but we control them pretty carefully because the electrical properties that you get at the end of the process can vary a lot if the kiln moves more than 2 or 3 degrees Celsius. And so there's a few processes that I kind of skip over, like the machining, which is done with CNC machines primarily. And then we're going into another process, and this is what turns the ceramic from just a piece of pottery into a piezoelectric ceramic. And this is the pulling process. And that's what Angie's doing here. She's putting tubes into what looks like a commercial fryer. And there's a lot of voltage that gets pumped in there, anywhere from 2,000 volts to 20,000 volts. Those are done at high temperature. And that's what organizes all of the electrodes on there to give it those piezoelectric properties. And Chrissy here is doing some QC or QA for the parts before or after they get electroded. So just a little sort of visual as to what happens in Ontario. In Nova Scotia, where I am right now, and this is at COVE, Sheila and Kyle, is our assembly process. So they're doing some manual assembly of hydrophones here, Mehul. You know, what's funny is this video is actually taken on a skateboard, following all health and safety regulations and social distancing, of course. And so we have 6 production workers here in Nova Scotia. This is the 2 bays that we have, which we've set up primarily for inventory control as well as testing. So we can pressure test, an acoustic test. There's a tank there. All of our shipping and receiving, it all happens in the 2 bays that we've just gotten going. So that's sort of a little view of where we are in Nova Scotia. And in terms of the company itself, you know, we export probably 70 or 80% of our products. These are a few of the countries that we've exported to around the world. Lots of navies and militaries, as well as, you know, oil and gas companies. We work with a lot of European companies on leak detection in water mains. The uses are kind of endless. So that's just a quick overview of what we do here.
That's fascinating. Thanks, Niru. Quite an interesting view into the facilities, especially the ones I haven't been to in Ontario. It looks like an interesting place to work, and I know if the vibe is half as cool as it is here, then the people are having a good time up in Ontario too. So
we try to marry good time with productivity. It's hard some days, but yeah, we have created such an amazing culture here in Nova Scotia. I'm new to the province, so you know this, Kyle, but I split my time pretty evenly now. I've got 2 homes, 2 cars, and I go back and forth between the 2 places. What I've been amazed about here in Nova Scotia, just the people and how welcoming everyone has been. It's been easy to set up. It's been so easy to find great people. Actually, I was so impressed. It's one of the reasons we're staying is we've got such a great staff here. All of the early people that we hired, they're all still here. Happy to kind of keep going with us, even though, a new place, we don't have all the systems set up that we do in Ontario. So they've kind of had to weather through it with us a little bit as we figure stuff out, but such a great group of people here. So, I love the East Coast vibe. It's, there's something special about Nova Scotia, so, and the Maritimes.
Absolutely. I agree. I'm a little bit biased, but I do agree. So we've seen what the company's doing now, what kind of markets they're in. What do you see the company looking at going forward? What opportunities do you think kind of most interesting? What market verticals are most interesting to you going forward?
Well, it seems to change by the week. If you'd ask
Especially
me,
right now.
Especially right now. So what's interesting, I think, is that there's almost two plants running, right? We've got the one in Ontario, one here, and the markets and the verticals are actually equally different. And so piezo ceramics are used in a whole host of verticals that are not ocean tech related. And so they have interesting uses. So we sell ceramics into high tech commercial printing. There's also the medical market. And so with COVID-19, there's been a lot of interest in the types of ceramics that we make. We're seeing a lot of interest in trying to get really thin ceramics into ventilator parts, which are used in the valves. Mask and shield making ultrasonic machines use piezo ceramics. So there is a market for us as well there. All of that's outside of ocean tech, but interesting for the business in general, I think. It helps us diversify, it makes us stay healthy. We're able to sort of service lots of different areas. But on the ocean tech side, I think for me, the biggest trend is the amount of mapping and imaging that's happening right now. We're trying to explore more and more efficient ways. And a lot of that is done with either underwater or surface vehicles. You're starting to see the commoditization of that, I think, where companies or agencies are able to deploy large amounts, swarms even of vehicles. And each of those vehicles, they want to be sensing something. And so those acoustic sensors, I think, hopefully will come from us. But there is a big need. And I think it's a growing need. And that's, I think, a big focus for us is how do we miniaturize some of our products, get them onto vehicles? How do we make them more efficient and in a smaller package? All of those. So we're always developing new materials in Ontario that we can bring into products that we make here. But also just trying to come up with better designs and trying to shrink things down a little bit so that they're a little bit easier to manage, especially when you're working with a smaller package. So yeah, I think that's the big thing for us.
That's interesting. That's a kind of a common trend across the industry is those vehicles, the autonomy pieces, but the critical part is the communications and how do you relay information to and from those devices? Because the whole purpose is to essentially replace a manned vessel. So it's a good opportunity for a company like yours for sure.
Well, and there's just so much to know, I think. There's a lot of information we don't have about what's happening underwater. And vehicles are a great way to gather a lot of information very quickly, and whether it's acoustic and images, but there's lots of other information that needs to be known. And there's a lot of companies, I think, here that specialize in gathering information and different types of data. And I think it's kind of exciting. Like I did a TED Talk last year about ocean tech and the future and autonomous vehicles. But I think the most interesting part of it is that we know so little. We actually know more about Mars than we know about the ocean, which is crazy, right? So it's a good opportunity for lots of companies to be building some really interesting tech.
Absolutely. The interesting piece probably of all that is the collaboration with these companies, learning from them, things like that. I guess is a good experience that you're having with COVE is you get to interact with some of those companies and learn some of those gaps you may not know. Yeah.
So we came here without knowing a lot of other companies. We've obviously got our customers here. We have a great customer base, but when it comes to, people like precise machining and Mackenzie Atlantic Tools, and we've developed some really great relationships both with COVE tenants, and that was our first foray into getting locally sourced parts that we can assemble into our own. Working with other companies, we've got a couple of electronics designers now that are all local, and we work with McCartney as well for doing some of the overmolding with materials that we can't do right now. So all of those partnerships happen because of COVE, which is great for a company like ours, where we're pretty green in Nova Scotia. You kind of got that built-in family that you can draw on from to be able to advance your own products. So it's been great, and I've made a lot of friends. So being a newcomer, that helps too, right?
Oh, that's great to hear. Looking at kind of the broader picture, how can everything that's going on through this pandemic and the situation, how are you, your sales office, continuing to keep in contact with customers, find new customers without trade shows happening? Just kind of push the notice on how people can get in touch with you, things like that.
Yeah, so the pandemic has been interesting. So we're actually fully operational in both facilities. We haven't seen a decline in sales just yet. It's very realistic that it'll happen at some point, but for the most part, we have 100% of our staff working out of the office, actually. So especially in manufacturing, where we need bodies in the plant to be able to make things. And we're grateful for all of our customers to be still wanting product and still paying for them. So all of those are good things. But in terms of getting a hold of us, there's always the traditional means of going through the website, picking up the phone and calling us. We're, of course, on all the social medias, whether it's LinkedIn, like Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. We're actually still hiring. So we've added 3 new bodies since the pandemic started, a couple here in Nova Scotia and a few in Ontario. So it's always worthwhile to reach out to us if you are looking for something, because we are looking for great people always. And we're trying to find new ways to access people. And this is one of, this is a great way, hopefully, that people will find out a little bit more about us, what we do here. And this will hopefully lead to somebody reaching out saying, hey, maybe you can help us with something we're looking for. So.
Awesome. That's great. So if anybody has any questions, just go through the website. It's probably the easiest way, but also connect over social media. I know you guys are very active. I think you have your own mascot as well.
We do. I don't have one with me, unfortunately, but Echo, this sensor bat. And Echo's going, as soon as travel starts again, Echo's going to be,
there it is.
Marketing to the rescue. So any customers that have gotten shipments from us recently would have gotten an Echo in their box. And we're hoping that Echo is making his way around the world, showing us where he ends up. But usually he travels with me on my plane ride. So
that's great. We're almost at time. So people who want to get your contact information, I think it was on the last slide of your presentation, they can kind of scroll back and take a look, but also happy to share it in the chat. So thank you very much, Niru. It's been great to chat with you. And I learned a lot myself, especially seeing into your Ontario operations and some of the history of the company. So thanks very much.
Thanks for having me, Kyle.
Sweet. I'm just going to keep you on here for like 2 more seconds, because I'm going to talk a little bit about what's coming up next week, because that's actually World Oceans Week. World Oceans Day is on Monday, and we have a lot of innovative companies here in Ocean Tech at COVE. So we wanted to kind of take Tenant Talks. Instead of doing 1 per week, we're actually going to do 4 next week. So on Tuesday, we have a double header. So we have one at 1 o'clock and one at 1:30. It'll be Andrew Boswell from Remote and Scott Tobin, who you and I both know quite well, Niru, from Zeos. He'll be joining at 1:30. And then on Thursday, we're joined by Mark Berry of Pro Oceana Systems and Bruce Stover from Precise Design, who's been a very key supporter of Sensor Tech since you got here, essentially in Dartmouth. So
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's going to be a great week. Hopefully people watching today can tune in. And thanks again, Niru. So have